She came as a maid to the Cowboys' ranch, but took the role too seriously. Emma had never been to the countryside before. She had grown up in a city full of tall buildings, honking cars, and the constant buzz of people rushing to somewhere. Her life had been comfortable, filled with coffee shops, libraries, and quiet evenings at home. But when she saw the advertisement for a maid position at a ranch in Montana, something inside her stirred. Maybe it was the promise of wide-open spaces, fresh air, or the chance to escape her small routines. Whatever it was, she felt she had to try. She packed her suitcase carefully, folding clothes neatly, stuffing her favorite books, and making sure she had enough shoes for different occasions. She carried her small bag onto the bus that would take her to the town nearest the ranch. The ride was long, passing by rolling hills, fields of golden wheat, and distant mountains whose peaks were touched by clouds. Emma pressed her face against the window, amazed by the scenery. It was nothing like the city she knew. Here the air seemed cleaner, the sky bluer, and even the silence between the wind and the trees felt alive. When she arrived at the small town, Emma felt a little nervous. The streets were quiet, and the buildings were mostly low wooden structures, painted in faded colors. A general store, a cafe, and a post office were the only places she could see. She asked for directions to the ranch, and the townsfolk were friendly, giving her clear instructions with warm smiles. Some even offered to help her with her luggage. Emma felt welcomed, though the quietness made her heart beat a little faster. She wondered if she would really fit in here, so far from the life she knew. By late afternoon, she finally reached the ranch. From a distance, it looked enormous. Wooden fences stretched across acres of land, separating pastures where cows grazed lazily. A large barn stood tall, painted red, with the sun reflecting off its wide doors. The ranch house, a sturdy stone and wood structure, had smoke curling from the chimney, suggesting someone was cooking inside. Horses grazed in the distance, their tails flicking away flies, while the wind carried the faint smell of hay and animals. Emma felt a mix of awe and nervousness. She had read about ranch life, but seeing it in person was overwhelming. She was greeted at the door by a man who introduced himself as Jack, the owner of the ranch. He was tall, with a rugged look, wearing worn jeans, a plaid shirt, and boots that had clearly seen years of hard work. His hat shaded his eyes, but when he looked at Emma, she noticed a kind expression beneath his serious demeanor. "You must be Emma," he said, holding out his hand. "Welcome to our ranch. I hope you find it different from what you're used to." Emma smiled, shaking his hand firmly. "It's more than I imagined," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. Jack chuckled softly and guided her inside the house. The rooms were large and simple, with wooden floors that creaked slightly under her weight. Windows framed views of the land outside, and the furniture was sturdy, functional, and warm. There were books on the shelves, some worn with age, and a few photographs of the family who had owned the ranch for generations. Emma felt a strange sense of comfort, like she had stepped into a place with stories hidden in every corner. Jack showed her around, explaining her duties. She would be responsible for cleaning the house, maintaining order, and helping with some kitchen tasks. He also mentioned that sometimes she might help with the animals or outdoor chores, but only if she felt comfortable. Emma nodded eagerly. She had come here to learn, to work hard, and to experience something new. She wanted to do more than just clean rooms. She wanted to understand the rhythm of life on a ranch. After settling into the small guest room assigned to her, Emma unpacked her belongings. The room was simple but cozy, with a single bed, a small dresser, and a window overlooking a pasture. She placed her books on the shelf and set her clothes neatly in the wardrobe. For a moment she stood by the window, watching the sun dip behind the hills. The sky turned shades of pink and orange, and the cows slowly made their way back to the barn. A soft breeze touched her face, carrying the smell of fresh earth and grass. Emma felt a sense of freedom she had never experienced in the city. Dinner that evening was a quiet affair. Jack and two ranch hands sat around a large wooden table, sharing stories of their day. They spoke about the weather, the cattle, and the small joys and challenges of ranch life. Emma listened attentively, occasionally chiming in with questions. She learned about the routines: milking the cows early in the morning, feeding the horses, repairing fences, and how the land changed with the seasons. Each story fascinated her. She realized that life here was hard, demanding, but full of a rhythm and connection to nature that she had never known. After dinner, Jack invited Emma to take a short walk around the ranch. The air was crisp, and the sky was filled with stars more than she had ever seen in the city. The ranch was quiet except for the occasional sound of an animal or the wind through the trees. Emma felt small under the vast sky, yet strangely alive. Jack pointed out different parts of the ranch: the barn where the horses were kept, the pond where they watered the animals, and the fields that stretched as far as the eye could see. Each place had a story, a purpose, and Emma found herself imagining the hard work and dedication it took to keep everything running smoothly. That night, Emma lay in bed, listening to the sounds of the ranch: the low moo of cows in the distance, the creak of the barn doors in the wind, and the soft rustling of leaves outside her window filled her senses. She thought about the day ahead, the chores she would undertake, and the chance to learn from people who had lived this life for years. Her heart was full of anticipation, and though she felt nervous, she also felt ready. She had come here seeking a new experience, and she knew that tomorrow would be the beginning of something extraordinary. The next morning, Emma woke before sunrise. The first light of day painted the sky in soft shades of pink and gold. She dressed in practical clothes, sturdy shoes, and tied her hair back, ready to face her first day of work. As she stepped outside, the cool morning air filled her lungs. The smell of hay, fresh grass, and earth was invigorating. The ranch was waking up slowly, the cows moving, horses neighing softly, and the ranch hands already beginning their tasks. Emma felt a thrill of excitement and a little nervousness. She was no longer in the city. She was part of this living, breathing land now. Jack greeted her with a nod.
"Morning, Emma. Ready to start?" he asked.
She nodded enthusiastically. The day began with simple tasks: sweeping floors, dusting shelves, and helping in the kitchen. Emma moved carefully, wanting to do everything perfectly. She asked questions, learned the best ways to clean surfaces, and paid attention to details she had never considered before. She discovered that even the smallest chores required thought and care. The rhythm of work was slower than in the city, but it demanded attention, patience, and respect. By mid-morning, Jack invited her to see the barn. Emma watched in awe as horses moved gracefully in their stalls, the ranch hands feeding them with practiced efficiency. Jack explained the basics of caring for the animals, how to handle them safely, and how the ranch relied on each team member knowing their role. Emma listened intently, taking mental notes and imagining herself mastering each skill. She felt a mix of admiration and determination. This was not just a job, it was a way of life, and she was eager to embrace it fully. As the sun climbed higher, Emma realized that ranch life was unlike anything she had known. It was quiet yet demanding, peaceful yet full of work. Every action had meaning, and every task contributed to the larger rhythm of life here. She understood that she had stepped into a world very different from the city, a world where hard work, patience, and respect for nature shaped every day. By the end of her first day, Emma was tired but exhilarated. She had learned a great deal, and she felt proud of herself for adapting so quickly. That night, as she wrote in her journal, Emma reflected on her first day. She described the ranch, the people, and the tasks she had completed. She noted how alive she felt, how connected to the land, and how eager she was to continue learning. She realized that this experience was already changing her, not just in her skills, but in her perspective on life, work, and connection. She went to bed that night with a sense of belonging she hadn't expected, feeling that this journey had only just begun. Emma woke early the next morning before the sun had even touched the horizon. The soft pink and gold light barely lit the sky as she tied her hair back and put on her sturdy shoes. Today would be different, she thought. Yesterday had been a gentle introduction, a way to see the ranch and get used to its rhythm. Today, she would work more, explore more, and try to understand what it really meant to live on a ranch. She felt a flutter of excitement in her stomach as she stepped outside into the crisp morning air. The ranch was alive even before the sun had fully risen. Cows lowed softly in the distance, the horses pawed at the ground in their stalls, and the ranch hands moved with quiet purpose. Emma felt like she had stepped into a new world, one that moved to its own rhythm, independent of the busy streets and traffic lights she knew. Jack, the ranch owner, was already outside, leaning against the barn door and watching the land bathed in the first light of day. When he saw Emma, he gave a small nod and smiled. "Morning, Emma. Ready to take on a bigger part of the day?" Emma smiled widely.
"Yes, sir, I'm ready."
Jack led her first to the barn. The air smelled strongly of hay and animals, but it was not unpleasant. It was alive, earthy, and real. Emma felt her nerves mix with excitement as she stepped inside. Horses stood in their stalls, some eating hay, some shifting their weight from hoof to hoof. A few looked at her curiously as she walked by. Jack showed her how to sweep the barn, feed the animals, and check their water. Each task seemed simple, but Emma noticed quickly that it required attention and care. One misplaced step could startle a horse. One wrong gesture could make a cow uneasy. Emma threw herself into her work. She swept the floors until the hay lay in perfect lines, arranged the feed carefully, and checked each stall for cleanliness. Every action she took was deliberate. She wanted to impress Jack, to show that she was serious about learning and helping. Sometimes she even worked ahead, trying to anticipate what needed to be done next. Jack watched quietly, occasionally giving advice, sometimes just letting her learn on her own. He seemed amused by her enthusiasm, though he also noticed that her eagerness sometimes made her rush into things without waiting for guidance. After finishing in the barn, Emma moved on to the kitchen. She helped prepare breakfast for the ranch hands, chopping vegetables, stirring porridge, and setting the large wooden table. She tried to do everything perfectly, aligning the plates just so, arranging the cutlery neatly, and making sure no crumbs fell on the floor. Her attention to detail was admirable, but it also made her work slower than usual. Jack noticed this but said nothing, allowing her to continue, perhaps knowing that part of her learning would be realizing the balance between effort and efficiency. As breakfast was served, Emma sat quietly, observing. The ranch hands were rough, hard-working men who moved with ease around the house and fields. They spoke in short, practical sentences, laughing occasionally, joking gently with each other. Emma listened, fascinated by their stories about life on the ranch, about the animals, the weather, and the land. She realized that living here was not just about chores or cleaning. It was about understanding a rhythm, a connection to the earth, and to the people who shared this life. Once breakfast was over, Jack asked Emma if she wanted to try something new. "There's a small pasture on the east side," he said. I need someone to check the fences and make sure they're secure. It's not dangerous, but it requires attention. Think you can handle it?" Emma's eyes lit up. "Absolutely," she replied, barely able to contain her excitement. She followed Jack to the pasture, where the morning light fell gently on the grass, making it shimmer. The fence stretched for what seemed like miles, and Emma realized that even this simple task would require focus. She began walking along the posts, checking each connection, tightening loose wires, and making mental notes about where repairs might be needed. She was meticulous, determined not to miss a single detail. Jack watched from a distance, occasionally offering advice, and Emma felt a quiet pride in her work. Hours passed quickly. Emma hardly noticed the time as she moved from one task to another. She watered the animals, swept the barn again, and even helped gather some hay for the horses. Her energy seemed endless, her enthusiasm unrelenting. The ranch hands began to notice. Some whispered quietly to each other, surprised by her dedication. Others simply shook their heads with a smile, impressed by her determination, but also slightly worried that she might be pushing herself too hard. Emma, however, felt unstoppable. For the first time in her life, she felt that hard work had a purpose, that every small action mattered. By midday, the sun was high, and Emma finally took a small break. She sat under a tree, wiping sweat from her brow, and drank from her water bottle. She looked around at the wide open fields, the animals grazing peacefully, and the mountains in the distance. A sense of accomplishment warmed her. She had already done so much, and she was only halfway through her first full day of real ranch work. The physical strain was noticeable, but Emma felt invigorated, more alive than she had ever felt in her city apartment. After lunch, Emma returned to the barn to help with some light repairs. She noticed a few wooden beams that were loose and a section of fencing that had weakened over the winter. With careful hands, she used tools she had never handled before, hammering and tightening where needed. Jack occasionally offered instructions, and Emma listened intently, eager to learn. The work was slower than she expected, but she found a deep satisfaction in her ability to contribute meaningfully. Each improvement she made felt like a small victory, and she imagined the ranch as a living puzzle that she was helping to complete. As the afternoon stretched on, Emma's attention to detail began to show its effects. She moved carefully, sometimes pausing to make sure everything was perfect. The ranch hands exchanged glances, some smiling, some sighing softly. They knew her heart was in the right place, but they also knew that ranch life demanded balance. Emma, however, was determined. She had come to learn, to grow, and to prove herself capable of handling this new life. Every chore, every small task, became a chance to show that she was serious about her role. By evening, the sky was painted in soft shades of orange and pink. Once again, Emma had worked tirelessly from dawn to dusk, completing more than she had imagined possible. Her muscles ached, and her hands were scratched and dusty, but her spirit was high. She felt proud of herself, exhilarated by the amount she had learned in just one day. Jack approached her quietly as she wiped her brow.
"You've done well today, Emma," he said. "Very well.
Just remember, though, that ranch life isn't about perfection. It's about balance."
"You'll learn that soon enough."
Emma nodded eagerly. "I understand, sir. I want to do my best. I want to learn everything I can." Jack smiled gently. "And you will. But sometimes letting things be is just as important as making them perfect. You'll see what I mean." That night, after a simple dinner, Emma wrote in her journal again. She described her day in detail, the chores, the sights, the smells, and the feeling of accomplishment. She wrote about the barn, the animals, and the wide fields, and how every task had challenged her in new ways. Most of all, she wrote about the excitement she felt, the sense of purpose, and the growing love for this rugged, beautiful place. She realized that her determination to take her role seriously had fueled her learning, but she also began to understand Jack's words about balance. As she lay in bed listening to the quiet sounds of the ranch, the soft lowing of cows, the distant neigh of horses, and the rustling leaves, Emma felt a deep sense of belonging. She was no longer just a visitor or a helper. She was becoming part of the life of the ranch. The thought made her heart swell with pride and anticipation. Tomorrow, she would continue her work, perhaps even more dedicated than today, eager to embrace all the lessons this new life had to offer. Emma woke early once again, her body still sore from the previous day's work. Every muscle ached pleasantly, a reminder that she had truly immersed herself in ranch life. She stretched carefully and took a deep breath of the crisp morning air. The sun was just peeking over the horizon, casting a golden glow across the fields. The ranch was alive with soft sounds, the gentle lowing of cows, the rustle of wind through the trees, and the faint clop of horses walking in their stalls. Emma felt a thrill of energy as she remembered the tasks ahead. She dressed quickly in her practical clothes and sturdy boots, tied her hair tightly back, and stepped outside. The ranch felt even more vast in the morning light than it had the day before. Emma's determination had grown overnight. She felt ready to tackle any task and to prove that she could handle the hard life of the ranch. She wanted to be helpful, useful, and, above all, perfect in her new role. The first task of the day was the barn. Emma hurried over, eager to start, and found Jack already there, checking the water troughs and feeding the horses. "Morning, Emma," he said with a small smile. "I've got a list of chores for today. Ready to get started?" "Absolutely," Emma replied, her voice full of enthusiasm. Jack handed her a list. It included cleaning the barn, checking the fences, helping feed the animals, and assisting with some repairs in the barn. Emma looked at it and nodded. "I'll get started right away," she said, her eyes bright with determination. She wanted to complete everything quickly and perfectly. As Emma worked, she noticed the finer details of each task. She swept the barn meticulously, making sure no stray hay remained on the floor. She organized the tools, arranging hammers, ropes, and buckets neatly on the shelves. She even scrubbed the water troughs until they sparkled. Each time she completed a task, she felt a quiet sense of pride. But she also noticed that her attention to detail was slowing her down. The ranch hands were moving faster, accomplishing more in the same amount of time, but Emma continued to focus on perfection. By mid-morning, Emma had cleaned the barn, checked the fences, and organized the tool shed. She looked around, feeling satisfied with her work. Everything seemed spotless, orderly, and perfect. But as she walked outside, she noticed that the ranch hands were beginning to give her curious glances. Some smiled politely while others whispered quietly to each other. Emma didn't understand at first. She thought they were impressed by her dedication. As the day went on, Emma's efforts to be perfect started causing small disruptions. She insisted on redoing tasks that the ranch hands had already completed. She rearranged tools and feeds that others had organized differently. She even tried to micromanage some chores, giving instructions to people who had been doing them for years. Her heart was in the right place. She wanted to help, but her actions were beginning to create tension. Jack noticed the changes. He watched quietly as Emma worked, seeing her determination and her mistakes. He knew she meant well, but he also understood that ranch life required teamwork, patience, and trust. It was not just about doing everything perfectly. It was about knowing when to step in and when to let others handle their tasks. Jack decided to let her continue for a while, hoping she would learn this lesson herself. Around midday, Emma went to help with feeding the cows. She carried buckets of feed carefully, pouring it into each trough with precision. She noticed that some cows were slower to eat and adjusted the feed to make it look just right. A ranch hand approached her and suggested that it wasn't necessary to spend so much time on every little detail.
"They'll eat just fine," he said kindly. Emma frowned, a little surprised.
"But I want it to be perfect," she replied earnestly. The ranch hand smiled softly. "We know, Emma, and it's nice that you care. But sometimes good enough is enough. These cows will be fine." Emma nodded, but she didn't fully understand. She felt that perfection was important. Doing things properly, carefully, and thoroughly seemed like the right way to show respect for the ranch and the people who lived here. She didn't yet see that sometimes. Her actions, though well-intended, were slowing down the work and confusing others. After lunch, Emma turned her attention to the barn repairs. A few boards were loose, and the hinges on one of the doors needed oiling. She worked methodically, tightening screws, sanding rough edges, and applying oil with precision. She even cleaned the tools before using them, making sure everything looked neat. The ranch hands watched quietly, some impressed by her care, others a little frustrated that she was spending so much time on small details. By mid-afternoon, Emma's perfectionism was becoming more noticeable. She insisted on reorganizing the feed storage area, moving barrels and sacks around until they were aligned perfectly. One of the ranch hands tried to step in to help, but she politely redirected him, saying, "I can do this better. I want it to be just right." The ranch hand shook his head and walked away, muttering softly. Emma didn't notice. She was too focused on her work, too absorbed in making everything perfect. Her heart was full of pride, but she didn't realize that her actions were creating small tensions and frustrations around her. Jack finally approached her late in the afternoon. "Emma," he said gently, "you've worked very hard today. I can see that. But I want to talk to you for a moment." Emma looked up, a little surprised.
"Yes, sir?" Jack led her to the porch where they could sit and watch the sun start to set. "You're doing excellent work," he began.
"You care about every detail, and that's good. But ranch life isn't just about doing things perfectly. It's about balance, about working with the team, and knowing when to step back." Emma listened carefully, feeling a mixture of pride and confusion. "I thought I was helping," she said softly. "You are helping," Jack replied. "But sometimes your enthusiasm and attention to detail are making things harder for others. They've been doing this for years, and they have their own ways of doing things. That doesn't mean it's wrong, it's just different. You have to learn to work with them, not just for them." Emma nodded slowly, trying to understand. She realized that her determination to do everything perfectly might have caused more problems than she had intended. She hadn't meant to disrupt anyone. She had only wanted to help. But now she saw that helping sometimes meant letting go of control, trusting others, and working together. As the sun set, casting a warm orange glow over the fields, Emma felt a mix of emotions. She was proud of her work, but she also felt a little embarrassed that her efforts had caused tension. She realized that learning ranch life wasn't just about hard work. It was also about patience, understanding, and humility. That evening, after dinner, Emma sat quietly in her room, reflecting on the day. She wrote in her journal about her accomplishments, but also about the lessons she had begun to learn. She realized that taking her role too seriously had unintended consequences. While her intentions were pure, her perfectionism had made it harder for others to do their jobs and had created subtle tension on the ranch. Emma understood that she had to change her approach. She wanted to continue giving her best, but she also needed to trust the ranch hands, respect their experience, and learn when to step back. She felt a quiet determination growing inside her, not just to work hard, but to work wisely, balancing dedication with patience. As she lay in bed listening to the sounds of the ranch, the lowing of cows, the rustling leaves, and the occasional plop of horse hooves, Emma felt a sense of clarity. She knew that tomorrow would be another opportunity to learn, not just about chores or animals, but about teamwork, humility, and the subtle lessons of ranch life. She closed her eyes, feeling both proud of her dedication and ready to grow in new ways. For the first time, Emma understood that working too hard, even with the best intentions, could have consequences. The lesson was difficult, but necessary. She realized that perfection was not the goal. Harmony, balance, and cooperation were just as important. And as sleep came, she felt grateful for the chance to learn this lesson on a ranch where life moved at its own steady, patient rhythm. The next morning, Emma woke to the soft sounds of the ranch stirring. She stretched carefully, feeling the familiar aches from the previous days, but there was also a new sense of determination in her chest. She remembered Jack's words from last night about balance and teamwork. They had stayed with her, echoing softly in her mind. Perfection is not the goal. Harmony and cooperation mattered just as much. Emma wanted to take these words to heart, but old habits die hard. She had worked so hard to prove herself, and now she was beginning to realize that this new way of thinking might be the hardest task of all. As she stepped outside, the ranch greeted her with the golden light of early morning. The cows were moving slowly to the pasture, horses nickered softly, and the gentle breeze carried the scent of hay and earth. Everything seemed calm and beautiful, but Emma felt a flutter of nervousness. Today, Jack had told her, she would take on one of the more challenging tasks, helping move some of the cattle to a different pasture and assisting with a minor repair on the barn roof. These tasks were safe but required coordination, attention, and teamwork, something Emma knew she had struggled with. Jack was already waiting near the barn when she arrived. "Morning, Emma," he said, a small smile touching his lips. "Today, you're going to work closely with the team. It's important that you listen, ask when needed, and don't try to do everything yourself. Ready?" Emma nodded eagerly. "Yes, sir. I understand." For a while, she managed to follow his advice. She watched carefully as the ranch hands began preparing the cows for the move. She asked questions about how to guide them without startling them, how to use the gates correctly, and how to anticipate the animals' movements. She tried hard to stay patient, to let the others take the lead, and not to impose her perfectionism on the team. But as the morning wore on, Emma began to feel uneasy. The cows didn't move as quickly as she wanted. Some lingered in the wrong spot. Some wandered away from the group, and she felt an urgent desire to fix everything herself. She remembered her earlier instinct to do things perfectly, to take control so nothing went wrong. Slowly, she started to intervene, stepping ahead of the ranch hands, redirecting cows and adjusting gates without asking. Jack noticed immediately. He stayed a short distance away, observing silently as Emma's enthusiasm took over. The other ranch hands exchanged glances, their expressions calm but slightly worried. Emma was well-meaning, but her actions were beginning to disrupt the careful coordination that moving cattle required. A cow bolted slightly, startled by her sudden movement, and Emma's heart raced. She had intended to help, but instead she had created confusion. "Emma!" Jack called gently but firmly, walking over to her. "Step back. Let the team handle it for a moment." Emma hesitated, feeling a wave of frustration and embarrassment. I just wanted to help, she said softly. I know, Jack replied calmly. But sometimes helping means letting go. The goal isn't to control everything. The goal is to work with the team and keep everyone safe, including the cows and yourself. Emma nodded slowly, realizing the truth in his words. She took a deep breath and stepped back, allowing the ranch hands to guide the cattle properly. She watched carefully, noticing how smoothly they worked together, communicating silently with gestures and practiced movements. She understood now that experience, trust, and teamwork were more powerful than sheer effort alone. After the cattle were moved safely to the new pasture, Emma joined the team in the barn to help with repairs. A few wooden beams needed reinforcement, and a section of the roof required minor fixing. This time, she made a conscious effort to step back and let the ranch hands show her the proper techniques. She listened carefully, asked questions, and only acted when given guidance. Even so, her perfectionist instincts nudged her repeatedly, whispering that she could do it better, faster, more precisely. She fought the urge, reminding herself of Jack's advice. But then, a small accident happened. While Emma was holding a beam steady for one of the ranch hands, she misjudged her balance and shifted slightly. The beam wobbled, causing a loose piece of wood to fall and hit the ground with a loud thud. No one was hurt, but the sudden noise startled the cows in the nearby pen, who began to move nervously. The ranch hands quickly calmed the situation, but Emma's heart sank. She had tried so hard to do everything right, and now she had caused chaos. Jack approached her immediately. Emma, it's okay. Nobody is hurt, and the cows are fine. But this is exactly why teamwork matters. Perfection is not about doing everything yourself. It's about knowing your limits and trusting others to do their part. Emma's cheeks flushed, and she felt tears welling up in her eyes. She had always believed that working harder, being more careful, and doing everything herself was the way to show value. But now she realized that her desire for perfection had backfired. She had learned a hard lesson. Even good intentions could create problems, if not balanced with patience and trust. She stepped aside, letting the ranch hands continue their work. For the next few hours, Emma focused on observing, listening, and offering help only when needed. She discovered that sometimes the smallest contributions, holding a tool, passing a bucket, or offering encouragement, could make a bigger difference than trying to control everything herself. She began to understand the subtle rhythms of the ranch, how each person had a role, and how harmony came from cooperation, not individual perfection. As the sun climbed higher, Emma felt a mixture of relief and humility. She had faced the consequences of taking her role too seriously, but she had also learned an important truth. Ranch life, she realized, was not about being perfect in every task. It was about being part of something larger than herself, respecting the experience of others, and knowing when to act and when to step back. By late afternoon, Emma's efforts shifted. She helped the ranch hands with small tasks, always careful to follow instructions and avoid overstepping. She found joy in the teamwork, the shared laughter, and the quiet satisfaction of contributing in ways that truly mattered. She noticed how the ranch felt different when everyone worked together in harmony. The barn was cleaner, the repairs progressed smoothly, and even the cows seemed calmer. Emma realized that she was learning not just the chores of the ranch, but the deeper lesson of life itself: balance, humility, and trust. Jack watched her quietly, a proud smile hidden beneath his serious expression. He saw the change in her, not just in her actions, but in her attitude. Emma's determination had not vanished, but it had been tempered with wisdom. She had faced the consequences of her perfectionism and had emerged more thoughtful, patient, and cooperative. As the sun began to set, Emma sat quietly on the porch, watching the fields glow with warm light. She reflected on the day, on the accident with the beam, and on the lessons she had learned. She realized that growth often came from mistakes, and that even failure could teach something valuable. She felt a quiet pride, not in her perfection, but in her willingness to learn, adapt, and improve. That evening, after a simple dinner with the ranch hands and Jack, Emma returned to her room. She wrote in her journal, describing the day in vivid detail, the tasks, the small accident, the teamwork, and the lesson she had learned. She wrote about the feeling of humility, the joy of contributing to a team, and the importance of trusting others. For the first time, she understood that her value did not come from being perfect in every task, but from being part of something larger, from learning, growing, and working together. As she lay in bed that night, listening to the quiet sounds of the ranch, the soft lowing of cows, the distant neigh of horses, and the rustle of the trees, Emma felt a sense of peace she had never known. She had faced a challenge, made a mistake, and learned a valuable lesson. She felt stronger, wiser, and more connected to the land and people around her. She realized that her journey was not just about doing chores, but about discovering how to balance determination with patience, effort with trust, and ambition with humility. Emma closed her eyes, her mind filled with the gentle sounds of the ranch, and felt a quiet excitement for the days to come. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, and new opportunities to grow, and for the first time she was ready to embrace them, not with a desire for perfection, but with a willingness to learn, adapt, and work together with the team she was slowly becoming a part of. The next morning, Emma woke feeling different. The soreness in her muscles from the previous days still lingered, but it no longer felt heavy or exhausting. It was a gentle reminder of her hard work and growth. She took a deep breath, looking out the window at the vast fields stretching toward the horizon. The sunlight glinted off the grass, and the cows were slowly moving toward the morning pasture. Emma felt a quiet sense of peace. She was no longer just a visitor at the ranch. She was becoming part of its rhythm, part of its life. She dressed carefully in her sturdy clothes and boots, but this time she moved with calm confidence. She no longer felt the urgent need to control every action or perfect every task. Instead, she carried herself with a quiet awareness of what was important: teamwork, patience, and balance. Today, she decided, she would contribute fully, but she would also trust those around her. As she stepped outside, Jack was already near the barn, checking on the horses. He noticed her approach and gave a small nod. "Morning, Emma," he said. "Ready for another day?" Emma smiled warmly.
Yes, sir. I think I understand the rhythm of things a little better now.
Jack returned her smile. "Good. Today I want you to focus on helping where you can, but also on learning to work with the team. Remember, balance and trust are just as important as effort." Emma nodded, feeling a deep sense of understanding. She knew that today would be different, not just another day of chores, but a chance to truly put into practice the lessons she had been learning. She followed Jack to the barn, where the ranch hands were already preparing for the day's work. The morning began with simple tasks: feeding the horses, sweeping the barn, and checking the water troughs. Emma moved carefully, but this time she focused on efficiency and cooperation rather than perfection. She helped where she could, offered support, and listened when advice was given. The ranch hands began to notice the change in her. They smiled as she worked alongside them, her enthusiasm now balanced with patience and understanding. After finishing the morning chores, Jack assigned her a task that had challenged her before: checking the fences in the east pasture. But this time, Emma approached it differently. She walked alongside one of the ranch hands, asking questions and observing closely. When she noticed a loose wire, she pointed it out calmly and helped secure it. But she did not overdo it. She allowed the ranch hand to guide her actions, trusting his experience while offering her own careful attention. By midday, Emma was beginning to feel a sense of accomplishment that was deeper than before. She had worked hard, yes, but she had also learned to respect the experience of others, to work as part of a team, and to accept that not everything needed to be perfect. She realized that contributing meaningfully did not mean controlling everything. It meant knowing when to act, when to observe, and when to trust others. Lunch was a quiet affair, with the ranch hands gathering in the kitchen. Emma helped set the table and serve the food, moving efficiently and with care. She chatted with the team, asking questions about their experiences and listening to their stories. She laughed at their jokes, shared her own observations, and felt a growing sense of belonging. For the first time, she felt that she was not just an outsider trying to prove herself, but a genuine part of the ranch family. In the afternoon, Emma assisted with a more challenging task, helping to move a group of younger cows into a different pasture. She followed Jack's instructions carefully, staying close to the ranch hands and observing their techniques. She learned how to guide the animals gently, how to anticipate their movements, and how to work as part of a coordinated team. Her earlier tendencies to take over were replaced with careful observation and cooperation. She was patient, calm, and mindful of her actions, and the cows moved smoothly without confusion. After the cattle were safely in place, Emma joined the ranch hands in repairing a section of the barn roof. This time she listened intently to instructions, held tools when needed, and offered assistance only when appropriate. The work flowed smoothly, and she discovered a quiet satisfaction in contributing in this balanced way. Jack observed her from a distance, noting her growth with a sense of quiet pride. By late afternoon, Emma had experienced a full day of ranch life unlike any she had known before. She had worked hard, yes, but her efforts were now tempered with understanding, patience, and teamwork. She realized that her initial desire to perfect everything had been well-intentioned, but it had prevented her from truly connecting with the ranch and the people around her. Now, she felt a sense of belonging that was more meaningful than any amount of meticulous work could provide. As the sun began to set, casting warm, golden light across the fields, Emma took a moment to stand quietly and watch. The ranch was alive with activity. The cows grazing peacefully, the horses moving in their pens, and the ranch hands finishing their tasks with calm efficiency. Emma felt a deep sense of harmony, not just with the ranch, but with herself. She had learned that her dedication was most valuable when combined with patience, trust, and cooperation. Dinner that evening was a joyful affair. The ranch hands shared stories of their day, laughing at small mistakes and celebrating successes. Emma joined in, recounting moments of learning and growth, and the team welcomed her with warmth. She realized that her place on the ranch was not defined by how perfectly she could perform a task, but by her willingness to learn, adapt, and contribute to the team. She felt a sense of pride that was quiet but profound. After dinner, Emma took a walk around the ranch before heading to her room. The sky was painted with brilliant hues of pink and orange, and the wind carried the familiar scents of grass, hay, and earth. She paused near the barn, watching the cattle settle down for the evening and the horses move gently in their stalls. A calm sense of joy filled her heart. She had come to this ranch eager to prove herself, and in the process, she had learned lessons that extended far beyond chores and cleaning. When she returned to her room, Emma wrote in her journal. She described the day in detail, the tasks, the teamwork, and the lessons she had learned. She reflected on how far she had come, from someone who tried to do everything perfectly to someone who understood the importance of balance, trust, and cooperation. She wrote about the joy of feeling like part of a team and the satisfaction of contributing in a way that was both meaningful and harmonious. As she lay in bed that night, listening to the soft sounds of the ranch, the lowing of cows, the neighing of horses, and the rustle of leaves, Emma felt a profound sense of contentment. She had grown, not just in skill, but in character. She had learned that life, like ranch work, required patience, balance, and trust in others. She realized that her journey on the ranch had been about more than chores or effort. It had been about discovering a new way of living, a new way of thinking, and a new way of being part of something larger than herself. The next few days followed a similar rhythm, but each day felt easier and more natural. Emma worked alongside the ranch hands, learning new skills, helping where she could, and observing when necessary. She no longer felt the need to control every task or ensure perfection in every detail. Instead, she focused on what truly mattered, contributing meaningfully, learning from those around her, and embracing the shared rhythm of ranch life. Jack noticed the change in Emma and often gave her small, approving nods as she worked. The ranch hands also treated her as one of their own, welcoming her input and laughter, appreciating her dedication, but no longer worried about her overzealous perfectionism. Emma had earned their respect not just by working hard, but by learning to work wisely, with patience, humility, and trust. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, Emma walked to the pasture and watched the cattle settle in for the night. She thought about her journey from the nervous city girl who had arrived days ago, eager to prove herself to someone who had learned the deeper lessons of teamwork, balance, and humility. She felt a sense of belonging, of being truly part of this place and its people. Emma realized that the lessons she had learned on the ranch would stay with her forever. The value of patience, the importance of trusting others, and the joy of contributing to a team were lessons that went far beyond chores and barns. She felt grateful for the challenges she had faced, the mistakes she had made, and the guidance she had received. Each experience had shaped her into a more thoughtful, capable, and confident person. As she returned to the ranch house that evening, Emma felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. She had found her place here not by being perfect, but by learning, growing, and embracing the rhythm of life on the ranch. She had discovered that dedication was most meaningful when balanced with patience and cooperation, and that belonging was found not in doing everything alone, but in being part of something larger than herself. That night, Emma drifted to sleep with a sense of peace and joy she had never known before. She had come to the ranch seeking adventure and growth, and she had found not only both, but also a deeper understanding of life, teamwork, and herself. For the first time, she felt fully at home in this new world, a world of wide-open fields, gentle animals, hard-working hands, and lessons that would last a lifetime.